Humans are deeply social creatures. From early childhood, we possess an innate instinct to seek meaning, find certainty, and move together. For our ancestors, belonging to a highly cohesive group was a requirement for survival. Religion answers this psychological need exceptionally well by providing a shared moral framework, a sense of eternal purpose, and a tight-knit community. Faith systems become incredibly potent mechanisms for shaping human behavior. But because that drive to belong is so powerful, it attracts opportunistic leaders. Time and again, individuals co-opt religious structures, using the promise of divine belonging to extract money, demand free labor, or consolidate political power. The profound human search for truth is the exact psychological vulnerability that predators weaponize to capture us. When someone enters a highly controlling group, they often undergo what psychologists call the abdication syndrome. They surrender their critical thinking, personal responsibility, and autonomous will. In exchange, the group gives them an artificial, unshakable certainty. This requires a specific mechanic known as transferred obedience. An abusive leader intentionally inserts themselves as an indispensable surrogate between the believer and God. They monopolize how Scripture is read and how grace is distributed. Historical cult leaders engineered environments where devotion to them superseded all other loyalties. They elevated themselves to infallible, godlike figures, conditioning followers to obey abhorrent commands without question.
Today, this exploitation hides in plain sight. Controlling organizations evolve their recruitment tactics, utilizing modern technology and presenting themselves as self-help programs, high-end business seminars, or elite wellness communities. This individual leader model easily infects mainstream settings. Charismatic pastors in large churches are often treated as uniquely anointed by their congregations. Massive platforms and celebrity status shield them from accountability, allowing them to exploit followers, while the institutional apparatus suppresses dissent. To maintain this control, the leader removes the orthodox concept of unconditional divine grace. They replace it with a rigid, performance-based contract. Love, acceptance, and spiritual validation are now granted only if the follower meets the specific behavioral conditions dictated by the human leadership. The believer learns to derive their identity entirely from the leader feedback loop. They are trapped performing for a human surrogate, terrified that displeasing the gatekeeper will result in divine punishment. Theologians describe a concept called spiritual freedom. It is the sacred, inviolable internal space where an individual's conscience communes alone with God. Healthy organizations maintain a strict boundary between private conscience and administrative discipline. They are two distinct spheres that should never overlap. Abuse occurs when a superior forces the full disclosure of a subordinate's private conscience, demanding identical spiritual expressions and punishing anyone who deviates. By erasing that boundary, the abuser annihilates the believer's autonomous identity. The victim undergoes radical personality changes, becoming intensely anxious, scrupulous, and pathologically dependent on the abuser's approval. When that supposedly infallible leader inevitably betrays the trust of the follower, the psychological and sociological fallout is catastrophic. Event study analyses of Catholic clergy scandals show a measurable, persistent drop in both religious participation and charitable contributions within affected zip codes. A betrayal of trust by a spiritual intermediary rapidly erodes the institutional foundation of the entire community. For direct victims, clinical psychologists identify this as religious trauma syndrome. It functions similarly to complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Because religion forms the core of an individual's worldview, a violent rupture by a trusted faith leader results in complete existential disorientation. Severe trauma disrupts a person's core beliefs about the safety and justice of the world. In the context of religious abuse, this shattered assumptions hypothesis explains why victims frequently reject the ideological framework that enabled their abuse. resulting in a total deconversion to atheism. The tragedy is specific. People abandoned God because they were successfully manipulated into believing the abuser's institution was the sole, indispensable agency of God on earth. But what if the premise is flawed? What if the belief that we need a human agency to reach God is an intellectual fallacy? Across vastly diverse eras and traditions, reform movements constantly emerged to dismantle human monopolies on divine access. The Protestant Reformation challenged the medieval Catholic structure by declaring a priesthood of all believers, arguing every individual has equal, direct access to the divine. In India, the Bhakti movement swept across the subcontinent by rejecting strict caste restrictions and complex orthodox rituals. Devotional poets composed hymns in accessible vernacular languages, preaching that spiritual fulfillment was available to anyone through direct personal devotion. Take a look at this Quaker meeting room. Notice what is missing. There is no pastor, no priest, and no altar. Their theology is anchored entirely in the inner light, a guiding spirit residing within every human being, rendering external human authorities completely unnecessary. History provides a continuous record of rebellion. Whenever a gatekeeper system becomes abusive or overly rigid, humans spontaneously and forcefully reclaim their inherent right to unmediated communion with the divine. This diagram represents immanence, the doctrine that a creator sustains the universe and remains intimately present within it. If God is all-encompassing, there is no gap between the believer and the divine. Any external agency that attempts to insert itself simply dissolves. Holding this concept in balance nullifies the logic of vicarious authority. Presenting God as a distant monarch creates a terrifying void that power-hungry leaders eagerly fill. But recognizing divine immanence exposes those human surrogates as artificial inventions. Abusive religious surrogates are sociologically destructive and theologically redundant. The spiritual architecture they claim to bridge doesn't actually exist. Ultimate spiritual authority has always belonged directly to you.